What's up guys, T here, and today I have the first video of my country management tips series, a series in which I show you my recommendations on how to play the countries you want to know about. Today's video will feature Germany and will show you how to get the true Blitzkrieg achievement of forcing Poland and France to capitulate before the end of 1939 on veteran difficulty. In this video we will cover what to research, what to produce, who to recruit and deploy, and what net focuses and advisors to get. The game I have open in the background is actually the game I did to test out the tips in this guide. As you can see, both France and Poland have capitulated, and it was a conquer-all capitulation of France rather than the easier puppet France capitulation. Also, this was accomplished without having Italy as an ally. One thing to remember, guys, is that this is merely one way to play this and accomplish this out of potentially infinite ways. Therefore, use this just as tips and to get you thinking rather than as a must-follow script. Now on to the tips. The first item we're going to look at is research. So what I'm going to do is run through what I researched in order and then sprinkle in some reasons of why I researched it as we go. So what I started with was Production 1, Construction 1, Electronic Mechanical Engineering, and the Light Tank SPG, Light Tank 2 SPG. So the reason I did the SPG right away is I knew when I started I was planning on using motorized division supported by mechanized artillery, so I wanted to get it researched right away in order to be able to start producing it earlier and then have more ready to go when I needed them in combat. To follow this, it went directly to the Tank Destroyer 2, then it went to Mechanical Computing, and then followed that with the AA tank variant, then following with Concentrated Industry 1, then the Maintenance Company, then Production 2, and then Construction 2, then Concentrated Industry 2, then the MP divisions, then radio in order to unlock the Signal Company, then the Field Hospital, and then the first land doctrine. So you start with that as Germany already unlocked, and then I went on to get this one, and you should have a 50% speed buff with that due to the national focuses. And the important thing of why you want to get these as soon as you start to have some free space to do so is they give you some really useful bonuses as far as for your divisions in the field. Next I did the Logistics Company, and then the Signal Company, and then another land doctrine, so this one, and then followed that with Support Weapons 1, then the Computing Machine, and it's due to note that this is when I unlocked the 5th research slot, so I used the 5th research slot to do Computing Machine. Following that, I did the Improved Weapons and Improved Equipment 1, then radio detection, then another land doctrine, and for that I went with mobile infantry because I was planning on using motorized infantry as my primary force. And then I went with support weapons 2, then production 3, concentrated industry 3, and construction 3. Then following that I did decryption 1, then another land doctrine, so right here, and then infantry equipment 2, engineers 2, Recon 2, Field Hospital 2, MP 2, Logistics 2, Signal Company 2, and Maintenance 2. And then another land doctrine, so this one right here, and then Medium Tank 1. And that's it for the text I've researched so far. What I'll be doing is typing these up and making a written copy of it, so if you like to take a look at that, that'll be linked in the description below. Now, let's talk production. So I started a new game here just to show you the fresh production screen so I can show you what I started with, and then I will verbally express how I changed it and progressed it throughout the game up to the point that I stopped at. So what I started with was 10 assigned to infantry, 7 assigned to support equipment, 4 assigned to artillery, 11 assigned to light tank, 8 assigned to motorized, and then I dropped these 3 down here. Now the reason I have what I have is the artillery is part of the infantry company. They just natively start with artillery in their template. The support equipment is planning to add additional support companies in the future, so I'm just building them preemptively. Infantry equipment is self-explanatory. The light tank is to keep the production up for which you'll see in a minute, and then the motorized is for producing enough trucks for the support companies and for the SS divisions that we're going to be recruiting later. As far as naval production, what you're going to want to do is just take this and switch it straight to convoy. Just drop these other two. And the reason we're not building any ships is because what happens is you can't protect them from the Royal Air Force / the French Air Force, or the Allied Air Force if you prefer, and also the Allied navies. So you just can't protect them. They're gonna get wiped out. If you know something I'm not seeing and you're able to maintain your navy through this without losing significant losses or getting utterly destroyed, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. But usually I just ignore the navy in the beginning of Germany's conquest, and that's because even if you go for convoy raiding, I just find that your subs just get so damaged and beat up so quickly, and then they come back and try to repair, and all of a sudden they just get bombed right out of the sky by the Air Force. So if you want to, the way to combat that would be to produce your own planes and then set them on air superiority within over your ports, which is one way to do it. But honestly, the way I see it and the way I would like to play it, I'd rather take those factories and help produce my land units, and then once 1940 runs around, I would use that and then spam out a bunch of 1940 variants of those planes. And as well, at that point, after you've captured much of mainland Europe, you'll be able to have more harbors to start producing more ships, and then maybe eventually start to compete with the Allied navies. So the first change I make to my production is, as soon as the SPG finishes researching, I automatically switch this light tank into the SPG. And swapping them out is going to give you a better starting production efficiency for the SPG than if you just started to build a new assembly line with the SPG and then added factories. And the reason for that is in the penalties, and that's explained in a production efficiency video on my channel, so if you want to know more about that, you can check that out. So following that, I don't touch the production again until the October of 37, and at that point I drop artillery down 1, SPG down 1, and then I start working to get infantry equipment up to 15 and motorized up to 10. And what this requires, as you can see, is you don't have enough starting factories. Right around that time, you should be getting the Anschluss of Austria, so you should be getting the extra factories there. And then soon following that is when, like 1938, about the start of 38, is when I would start producing military factories as well as still producing civilian factories side by side. And that's really most of the actual strategic production maneuvering. After that, you're just going to be gaining more factories from annexing smaller countries like Czechoslovakia, as well as you're going to be getting more factories from the ones you're producing. And at that point, it's just managing to keep up with supply and demand. So when you're recruiting these new divisions, make sure you're putting the factories where they need to be in order to keep up with the demands you're needing. The next thing I'd like to look at is recruit and deploy, and this one's going to be a little tougher for me to actually show you. So what I'm going to do is just explain it verbally whilst I go through. So the first thing I recruit when I start Germany is a line of 12 divisions by full repetitions of just regular foot infantry. The reason you start with this is the whole goal in the beginning is just to get your army manpower up as high as possible. The reason you want to do this is because a lot of the national focuses are entirely dependent on the size of your army. For example, you can't research the Anschluss of Austria until you get 550,000 army manpower in the field, not just in the recruiting tab. So the army manpower number, as you see up there, will go up if the units are in the recruiting tab. The units have to actually be in the field in order to be able to do the national focus. So the next thing I did following that is I started to have some army experience, so I took the SS division and actually gave it 3 mechanized SPG, just modifying here, not actually recruiting. And I also took what is the artillery support company and swapped it to the maintenance company. And then for the field hospital, I didn't actually add this at this point. I added this later in order to save army experience for other things, and then once I got more later, then I added this in. And then just a quick note, this is just what this division ended at this point. It is by no means finished yet. This was just a rough sketch division used based out of necessity. So at this time, then I proceeded to recruit, after that change was made, 12 divisions by 4 repetitions of SS, so 48 divisions. Following that, once I got a little more Army XP, I actually created my military police division, which is what you see here. I just saved up enough and created this in bulk, and then immediately recruited 12 divisions by 4 repetitions of MPs, so 48 divisions. And then following that, I did another 12 divisions by 2 repetitions of SS, and then followed that with another 12 divisions by 4 repetitions of military police. Now, the reasons for recruiting the SS is they're going to be your main driving force as far as going on the attack. The infantry divisions are going to be 1 to boost your manpower and 2 to be your defensive force on the front lines. And the military police are going to be for occupying Poland, occupying your northern shores against UK invasions, and also for occupying France. And then just real quick, I'll give you a peek into just what my infantry template's looking at the given moment. And you can see it's actually still vanilla. The next thing I would be adding to it is adding the field hospital to keep down on the casualty, because Germany, to be honest, for their ambitions, have a relatively low manpower count. So next we're going to do the advisors, and I'm going to run through the order of what I'd recommend getting and why. So the first one I got was the Industrial Theorist, and the reason I did this is to reduce that industrial research time, because you do a lot of stuff researching that and you do it right away. So to get that 10% buff is extremely important, extremely helpful to start the game. Following that, I grabbed the Captain of Industry Advisor, and the reason I did this is because of his construction speed bonus for the civilian factory. Next, I decided to save up for the Mobile Warfare Expert. So the reason I did this is, one, because you get the experience, army experience gain to help modify your division templates, which is very, very important. And then the other thing I wanted this for was the bonus to the Mobile Warfare Doctrine minus 10% research time, because like I said, getting those early is really important. Following that, I researched the Small Arms Designer Company, and the reason for that is just to get that research buff, because small arms for this build is the more important research thing, because we're not going to be researching artillery because we're using mechanized, and the motorized research thing isn't really worth it because there's only a few technologies involved with that. Next, the world tension was high enough, so I switched my economy to a war economy to increase the production speed for military factories, as well as get the consumer factories percentage down so I would not be bleeding as many factories to consumer goods. Next, I unlocked the Infantry Expert Military Commander, because the motorized infantry was going to be my main attack, as well as the regular infantry were my main defense. Followed that with the Armor Company Commander, Rommel, because his buff is going to positively affect the SPGs. And then went right on to the Army Logistics Expert. The reason I did this one is because oftentimes trucks and tank variants are very negatively affected by attrition when crossing hills and mountain ranges and different things like that, rough terrain. So to keep that from happening as much, the attrition rate, -8%, is very helpful. Following that, I did the Chief of Army Maneuver, just because since we're focusing on motorized divisions, that bonus speed is extremely helpful, because you're taking a high speed and then giving it a bonus, which is a considerable bonus since it's such a high speed to start with. Next advisor I did was the Prince of Terror, and the reason I did him is it's nice to keep the effective partisans down, as well as the foreign subversive activity, since when you invade Poland and France, since they join the Allies, when you capitulate, they still resist you because they're still technically in the war. So that'll help cut down on that resistance within those territories. I followed that with the Mobile Tank Designer, just because, again, speed. Then was required to switch to Extensive Conscription in order to keep on recruiting and expanding. And then grabbed the Light Aircraft Designer, and that was just for the airspeed and the agility of the fighters, which I prefer to affect the most because it all starts with air superiority. So now let's look at national focuses. The first focus I research every time is this one right here, and then I follow that up with the Rhineland before I go to West Wall. And the reason you're going to want to do that is these forts that are built, half of them that are built are within the Rhineland, so if you don't do the Rhineland first, you actually don't get the other half of the forts, because you're not allowed to build military forts in there since you haven't occupied it yet. Following that, I go industrial just to get those extra civilian factories. Then I follow it up with Army Innovations and Treaty with the USSR in order to get the research bonuses. Then move straight down into Air Innovations 2 and Rocketry, and then get that extra research slot. So that's just a chain to get down to that extra research slot. That's what I'm aiming for. At that point, you should have enough military in the field to Anschluss Austria, which then I would demand the Sudetenland, do the first Vienna Award, and then annex all of Czechoslovakia with the fate of Czechoslovakia here. And the reason you're going to want to do this is, one, it gives you all of Czechoslovakia's resources as far as factories and everything, but the other thing is why you want to focus on them is they open up, once you take that territory, you extend the Polish border, effectively spreading out the Polish troops across that border, so you have an easier time breaking through and advancing across their territory. The other reason is a lot of times I've found if you don't touch Czechoslovakia, they will turn around and bite you in the ass when you go to advance on Poland or France, because they'll actually join the war on the Allies side. I would follow this up with the Reassert Eastern Claims and then Danziger War. And the reason I would do this is because at this point you're going to be really getting close to 1939, and you're going to want to get into war with them right away so you have enough time to make both capitulate before you get the end of 39, and then you can't get the achievement anymore. And trust me, at this point you will be ready. At least I was with the method I chose to follow. So then war with France most likely will be bypassed because they'll be allies now, and they'll jump right in against you. And then following that, you're just going to grab around the Maginot right away. And then be tactical about when you actually decide to declare war on Belgium and the Netherlands and Luxembourg and go around. Because actually, the way I saw it, the way I was advancing through Poland, I had the ability, the luxury I should say, to wait to capture all of Poland and then move all my forces to focus on France. Which obviously that is the preferable way to do it, because then you can just focus on one enemy at a time. If you should need to, then you need to, and that's just going to be a feeling of the game thing. I can't really dictate, oh, you have to do this, this, and this, because it can vary every time. To follow that up, I grabbed Army Innovations 2 for the research bonuses for the land doctrine, and then I started the anti-Comintern pack. And then one other quick tip I have for you guys is, when Spain has its civil war, always be sure to send volunteers to it, because it's a good way to get army experience early, and like a decent amount of it for how early you are in the game. So always be sure to send your tank divisions that you start with, because they're going to be really effective fighting against those infantry divisions when they don't have any AT presence or any tank presence in the area. So they're going to be super effective at just going down there and busting it up. Alright guys, that does it for my Germany tips video. If you have any questions about something I covered or anything that I did not cover, just let me know in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. If you have a country that you want to see as part of this series, be also sure to leave that in the comment section below. If you're new to my channel, be sure to check out my other Hearts of Iron 4 videos and other content. There's a lot of helpful stuff on here. If you like what you find, or if it helps you, be sure to subscribe, because there's new content coming out all the time. And as always guys, thanks for watching.